Roman nobleman smears a thick gray paste of goat fat and ash across his scalp. He rinses the mixture away to reveal hair dyed a shocking, vibrant red. This was not a mistake, but a deliberate grooming ritual of the ancient Gauls. Across the Mediterranean, Egyptian elites scrubbed their skin with oils to mask the stench of the sun. For thousands of years, humanity maintained its hygiene with nothing more than fat and fire-born lye. But why did the most advanced civilizations on Earth spend millennia coating themselves in animal tallow? The practice began long before the Roman Empire expanded into northern Europe. Archaeological evidence traces the roots of primitive soap to Mesopotamia and Egypt around 3000 BCE. Workers in these ancient river valleys combined animal fats with the alkaline residue of wood ashes. This chemical reaction produced a crude, slippery substance capable of binding to dirt and oil. It was a breakthrough in human sanitation, though it lacked the refined scent of modern products. Ancient Egyptians refined this process for their own specific needs. They utilized citrus-based rinses to cut through the heavy buildup of dust and sand. Essential oils like rosemary and lavender served a dual purpose in the arid climate. They provided a floral fragrance while acting as a natural deterrent against lice. These early cleaning agents were not mass-produced, but carefully crafted by hand. By the 1st century CE, the Roman naturalist Pliny the Elder documented these techniques in his work Naturalis Historia. He observed that the Gaulish tribes relied on a mixture of goat fat and beechwood ash. The Gauls prized this concoction for its ability to lighten the hair and cleanse the scalp simultaneously. Roman citizens adopted similar methods to manage their own grooming standards. They frequently utilized fuller's earth, a porous clay, to absorb excess grease from their hair. A final rinse with vinegar often followed these treatments to restore a natural shine. The acidic liquid neutralized the harsh, alkaline nature of the primitive soaps. This chemical balance was essential for maintaining hair health in a pre-industrial world. Though these rituals seem crude today, they were the standard for centuries. The quest for clean hair was a constant struggle against the limitations of chemistry. Thousands of miles from the Roman bathhouses, another tradition flourished in the Indian subcontinent. Ancient practitioners of Ayurveda looked to the natural world for their cleansing agents. They identified the fruit of the Sapindus tree, commonly known today as soap nuts. These small, wrinkled berries contained a high concentration of natural saponins. Saponins functioned as a biological surfactant that produced a mild, effective lather. Ayurvedic texts documented the use of these berries for centuries. Women gathered the dried fruit and soaked the shells in warm water. The resulting liquid stripped away dirt without the harshness of animal fats. This method avoided the heavy residue left behind by traditional tallow-based soaps. It provided a gentle alternative that preserved the natural oils of the scalp. In the humid climate of India, this botanical solution offered a unique advantage. It cleaned the hair while acting as a natural conditioner for the scalp. The practice remained a staple of regional hygiene long before industrial chemistry arrived. It demonstrated a sophisticated understanding of plant biology applied to daily life. The use of Sapindus proved that effective cleansing did not always require fire-born lye. Many regions across Asia integrated these soap nuts into their routine hair maintenance. The fruit shells were pulverized into a fine powder for easier application. This powder mixed readily with water to create a consistent cleansing foam. It provided a clean scent and a soothing effect on the skin. The reality was that millions of people maintained their hygiene through these natural extracts. These traditions remained largely localized until global trade routes expanded. Botanical knowledge traveled alongside spices and textiles across the Indian Ocean. Yet the core of the practice remained tethered to the natural harvest of the Sapindus tree. It stood as a testament to centuries of observation and trial within Ayurvedic medicine. The quest for clean hair existed long before the first bottles appeared on shelves. But to understand why this moment of natural cleansing mattered, you need to see the limits of the world before it. Soap nuts provided a bridge between raw nature and the necessity of human hygiene. They represented a refined approach to the same problem faced by the Roman elite. While the Gauls relied on fat and ash, others relied on the chemistry of the forest. Each civilization developed its own solution to the challenge of oil and dust. A bar of hard white Castile soap sat on a porcelain basin in a London townhouse. The year was 1870. Women of the Victorian era relied on these blocks of olive oil-based soap for their monthly wash. The process was far from the simple lather of modern life. Lye and rendered animal tallow formed the base of most common household cleansers. These ingredients were highly alkaline. They clung to the hair shaft with stubborn chemical persistence. A thick gray film known as soap scum coated the strands after every rinse. It left the hair feeling heavy, dull, and coated in a tacky, waxy residue. The problem was the interaction between the soap and the minerals in hard water. Manuals of the time provided the only solution to this persistent industrial failure. The Young Lady's Journal of the 1870s offered explicit instructions for the desperate user. It advised a final rinse using diluted vinegar or fresh lemon juice. The acid worked to neutralize the harsh alkalinity of the soap. It stripped away the worst of the waxy buildup. The process required patience and precise measurement. Without the acid, the hair remained matted and impossible to comb. Wealthy households employed maids to prepare these specific acidic solutions before bath time. Middle-class women mixed their own batches in the kitchen. The reality was a constant battle against the limitations of 19th-century chemistry. Cleanliness was a labor-intensive ritual rather than a quick morning habit. The scent of vinegar lingered long after the hair had dried. It was the necessary price for avoiding the grime of the city streets. Few people questioned the cycle of soap and acid. It was the standard of the age. The struggle with residue defined the grooming experience for an entire generation. Every wash required a balancing act between harsh fats and sharp acids. The result was rarely the soft, flowing hair depicted in modern marketing. It was simply hair that was clean enough to be considered presentable. The era of the soap bar had reached its functional limit. The necessity of the vinegar rinse proved that soap alone could not solve the problem. But to understand why this cycle finally broke, you need to see the shift toward a new form of chemistry. The modern obsession with the daily shower is a recent historical anomaly. For centuries, the human scalp followed a different rhythm. Between the 17th and the 19th centuries, washing hair was a rare event. Most people cleansed their hair once every month, or even less frequently. The primary tool of the era was not soap, but the Boar Bristle brush. These brushes consisted of stiff, coarse fibers harvested from wild swine. Women spent hours every evening methodically drawing these bristles through their hair. This process served a specific, vital biological purpose. The scalp naturally produced sebum, a dense oil intended to protect the hair shaft. Without regular washing, this oil accumulated near the roots. The Boar Bristle brush acted as a mechanical transport system for these lipids. With every stroke, the brush lifted the oil from the scalp. The bristles distributed the sebum down the entire length of the hair. This coating acted as a natural conditioner and a water-resistant barrier. It kept the hair protected against the dust of 19th-century city streets. The reality was that frequent washing would have stripped away this essential layer. Without the sebum, hair became brittle, dry, and prone to breakage. The brush was the only technology available to maintain hair health. It required physical labor and a significant time commitment every single day. A woman in 1850 did not need a bottle of chemical conditioner. She relied on the steady, repetitive motion of the brush against her scalp. The truth was that the hair was cleaner than most modern standards would suggest. The oil was not filth, but a functional biological protectant. But to understand why this tradition eventually died, you need to see the rise of the chemical industry. The brush era began to fade as commercial powders took over the market. By the late 1890s, the focus shifted from mechanical grooming to chemical cleaning. The Boar Bristle brush was relegated to a relic of a different age. The era of daily washing replaced the era of the daily brush. The human scalp had to adapt to a new, synthetic standard of cleanliness. The year was 1890. The location was London, England. A German immigrant named Casey Hebert stood at the center of a shifting market. The era of the vinegar rinse was failing. Women grew tired of the labor required to remove waxy soap scum. Casey Hebert identified a gap in the grooming industry. The solution arrived in the form of a dry powder. This product was marketed under the name Shampoo. It was not a liquid in a plastic bottle. It was a precise blend of soap, dried herbs, and aromatics. The powder was designed to dissolve easily in warm water. It acted as a bridge between the old solid soap and future innovations. The ingredients targeted the grease of the Victorian city streets. They offered a more portable alternative to the heavy blocks of Castile soap. The trademark filings for the product documented this transition. Casey Hebert transformed the act of washing from a chore into a specific purchase. The powder sat in small containers on washstands across the city. It removed the need for the household to boil water for hours. But to understand why this moment mattered, you need to see the shift in consumer behavior. The public moved away from the kitchen-made mixtures of the past. They sought the convenience of a pre-measured cleanser. Casey Hebert captured this demand for efficiency. The product signaled the end of the homemade soap era. It paved the way for the chemical advancements that followed in the next decade. The powder was a commercial milestone. It turned hair hygiene into a standardized, repeatable event. The reliance on vinegar began to decline as these powders gained popularity. Casey Hebert set the stage for the industrialization of the human scalp. In 1903, the city of Berlin hosted a quiet revolution in a small chemical laboratory. A German chemist named Hans Schwarzkopf turned his attention away from the messy powders of the previous decade. He sought a substance that dissolved instantly in water without leaving a trace. The resulting product was a fine, water-soluble powder. It represented a clean departure from the heavy, residue-prone soaps that dominated the market. This invention allowed for a more consistent cleansing experience. Users simply added the powder to water and applied the mixture to their hair. The chemical composition ensured that the mixture remained stable and effective. Hans Schwarzkopf moved the industry toward a new standard of precision. The market responded with immediate interest in his refined chemical formula. By the mid-1920s, the demand for professional hair care services grew across Europe. Hans Schwarzkopf capitalized on this momentum by expanding his operations. In 1927, he opened the first Shampoo Institute in Berlin. The facility functioned as a training ground for professional hairdressers. Students learned the science of hair health and the proper application of cleansing agents. The institute established a formal curriculum for the grooming industry. It moved hair care away from the domestic kitchen and into the professional salon. The training emphasized the chemical interaction between water and synthetic cleansers. Hairdressers learned to analyze scalp conditions and select appropriate treatments. The institute served as the epicenter for modern hair hygiene education. Hans Schwarzkopf transformed a simple chore into a standardized professional service. His work bridged the gap between the era of vinegar rinses and the rise of synthetic detergents. The transition from homemade mixtures to laboratory-developed products was now complete. The Berlin Institute set a precedent for the global hair care industry. It marked the moment when science officially replaced tradition in the bathroom. The era of the soap bar began to fade into obscurity. Chemists now held the key to the modern grooming experience. Every bottle on a modern shelf owes its lineage to the work started in that Berlin lab. The shift toward water-soluble powders changed the fundamental biology of hair maintenance. Grease was no longer a natural protectant, but a target for chemical removal. The Institute ensured that the professional standards of 1927 became the global norm. Hans Schwarzkopf remained at the forefront of this chemical evolution for decades. His name became synonymous with the standardized cleansing of the human scalp. The transition was permanent and total. The year was 1908. The location was New York City. The New York Times published a full-page advertisement. The text introduced a product called Canthrox. The copy instructed users to dissolve the powder in hot water. This simple direction signaled a shift in American hygiene. The solid soap bar began its slow decline in the vanity market. The advertisement promised a more efficient method of hair maintenance. Consumers read the instructions in their morning newspapers. They learned to mix the fine powder into a basin of heated water. The resulting liquid provided a more consistent lather than traditional soaps. The practice of manually grating heavy soap blocks vanished from the household. The convenience of the pre-measured powder changed the bathroom routine. But to understand why this moment mattered, you need to see the death of the soap bar. The market moved toward liquid-based cleansing agents. Canthrox standardized the ratio of soap to water for the average user. The product turned the messy chore of soap preparation into a simple act. The advertisement emphasized the ease of application for the modern woman. It targeted a public growing tired of the labor-intensive vinegar rinse. The powder dissolved quickly and left less residue than tallow-based soaps. The New York Times records show this was a pivot in consumer habits. The solid block of Castile soap lost its dominance on the washstand. The chemistry of the home changed with the adoption of Canthrox. Users no longer needed to manage the alkalinity of their cleansing mixtures. The transition toward liquid application paved the way for industrial shampoos. The advertisement acted as a catalyst for the consumer goods industry. Families abandoned the boiling of water for hours to melt soap chunks. The powder offered a portable and reliable alternative for the urban home. The shift was documented in the rapid rise of Canthrox sales. The industrialization of the human scalp accelerated during this period. The product transformed the bathroom from a kitchen-adjacent space into a laboratory. The era of the soap bar was officially ending in the American market. The convenience of the 1908 advertisement set a new standard for hygiene. Precision replaced the guesswork of homemade mixtures. The modern shampoo bottle traces its origin to these early powder packets. The shift in 1908 marked the final move away from tradition. The public accepted the new liquid standard without looking back. The year was 1933. The location was the headquarters of the Procter & Gamble Company. Chemists inside the facility finalized a formula that changed the chemistry of the human scalp. They called the product Drene. It was the first synthetic detergent-based shampoo ever marketed to the American public. For centuries, soap had remained the primary agent for cleaning. Soap relied on animal fats or vegetable oils to lift dirt. These traditional bars reacted poorly with the minerals found in hard water. This chemical reaction produced a dull, waxy residue known as soap scum. Women spent decades fighting this buildup with vinegar or lemon juice rinses. The introduction of Drene removed the need for these acidic additives. The product utilized synthetic surfactants instead of traditional tallow or lye. These surfactants remained effective even when mixed with mineral-heavy water. They stripped away grease without leaving the stubborn film of the past. The reality was that the chemistry of the hair had fundamentally changed. Procter & Gamble launched the product into a market accustomed to soap. The advertising campaigns highlighted the absence of residue. Consumers saw the difference in the clarity and shine of their hair. The Drene formula prevented the formation of calcium deposits on the hair shaft. This technological shift marked the end of the soap era in the bathroom. The vinegar rinse, a staple of Victorian grooming, became obsolete almost overnight. But to understand why this moment mattered, you need to see the cost of such efficiency. The synthetic surfactants were highly effective at removing natural lipids. They cleaned the scalp more thoroughly than any previous substance. This efficiency stripped the hair of its natural protective oils. The biology of the hair changed from a self-regulating system to a dry, porous texture. This shift necessitated the development of new grooming products. The industry moved toward the creation of modern cream rinses. Manufacturers introduced conditioners to replace the lipids that Drene removed. The 1933 breakthrough created a demand for a multi-step routine. The simple act of washing with soap evolved into a cycle of cleaning and replenishing. This was the beginning of the modern hair care industrial complex. The Procter & Gamble laboratories set a precedent for every shampoo that followed. Synthetic detergents became the global standard for hygiene. The era of the soap bar vanished from the shower stall. The chemical revolution of 1933 left no room for the old methods. Hair health was now a matter of balancing synthetic stripping with artificial replacement. The consequences of this change lasted for the remainder of the century. The Drene bottle sat on shelves across America as a symbol of scientific progress. It transformed the bathroom into a space managed by industrial chemistry. The transition was complete and irreversible. The 1933 introduction of Drene signaled a definitive shift in bathroom chemistry. Procter & Gamble engineers successfully replaced traditional tallow-based soap with synthetic surfactants. The new formula dissolved instantly, even in the hardest municipal water supplies. The waxy buildup that plagued Victorian households vanished from the hair shaft. The dull gray residue of soap scum became a relic of the past. But this efficiency arrived with a significant biological cost. The synthetic detergents were aggressive chemical agents. They stripped the scalp of natural lipids and protective sebum layers. The biology of the hair changed from a self-regulating system to a porous texture. Consumers noticed their hair felt excessively dry and unmanageable after every wash. The synthetic surfactants removed more oil than the scalp could naturally replace. The industry faced a new, unintended problem. Clean hair now lacked the natural luster provided by sebum. Manufacturers identified a gap in the consumer market for a replenishing agent. The solution was the invention of modern cream rinses. These products were designed to replace the lipids that Drene removed. The simple act of washing evolved into a multi-step routine. The cycle required a cleanser to strip the hair and a conditioner to coat it. This shift created the modern hair care industrial complex. The Procter & Gamble laboratories set the standard for every product that followed. Synthetic detergents became the global benchmark for hygiene. The era of the simple soap bar vanished from the shower stall. The chemical revolution of the 1930s left no room for old methods. Hair health became a matter of balancing synthetic stripping with artificial replacement. The consequences of this change lasted for the remainder of the century. The Drene bottle sat on shelves across America as a symbol of scientific progress. It transformed the bathroom into a space managed by industrial chemistry. The transition was complete and irreversible. But to understand why this moment mattered, you need to see the departure from nature. For centuries, humans relied on boar bristle brushes to distribute natural scalp oils. This mechanical process acted as a natural conditioner for the hair shaft. The 1930s shift replaced this mechanical distribution with chemical additives. The modern consumer traded natural oil for synthetic polymers. The result was a hair care routine that demanded constant industrial intervention. The biology of the scalp was permanently altered by the new surfactants. Every subsequent shampoo formula followed the path established by the Drene breakthrough. The history of hair hygiene became a history of chemical manufacturing. The transition marked the final move away from tradition. The public accepted the new liquid standard without looking back. The historical record confirms that the daily wash is a modern invention. For centuries, human hygiene relied on infrequent cleansing. Women in the 19th century washed their hair once a month or less. They relied on mechanical distribution rather than chemical intervention. A boar bristle brush moved natural sebum from the scalp to the ends. This oil acted as a biological barrier against environmental damage. The shift toward synthetic surfactants in 1933 altered this rhythm forever. Procter & Gamble's Drene eliminated the need for traditional soap. It also removed the natural lipid protection that once kept hair healthy. The industry responded by creating modern cream rinses and artificial conditioners. Hair health became a cycle of industrial stripping and synthetic replacement. The biological autonomy of the scalp vanished behind a wall of chemicals. Mass-market advertising normalized the daily cycle of washing and conditioning. What was once a monthly maintenance task became a daily requirement. The bathroom shelf filled with bottles designed to fix the damage they caused. The human scalp adapted to a state of constant chemical depletion. You stand in your shower, reaching for a bottle that promises restoration. You are simply repeating a cycle set in motion by a 1933 chemical patent. The natural balance you seek was discarded decades ago, leaving you to chase a shine that no longer belongs to you.